Admiral Sarah Chun stood in the center of the massive courtroom, her hands clasped behind her back. The room was so large that she could barely see the walls. Above her, floating platforms held the judges from 12 different alien species. Their eyes, tentacles, and sensors all focused on her like she was some dangerous animal in a cage. The air smelled strange. It was clean but cold, like metal and medicine mixed together. Sarah had been in many alien buildings before, but this place felt different. It felt like a tomb. Out to her left sat the 3 other human representatives. Captain David Park kept his face blank, but Sarah could see his jaw muscles working. Dr. Helen Torres fidgeted with her tablet, probably running through their defense arguments one more time. Ambassador James Wright looked older than his 60 years, his gray hair almost white under the harsh alien lights. The Zephyrian judge floated highest of all. Its long, pale body twisted in the air like smoke. When it spoke, the words appeared directly in Sarah's mind, cold and sharp as ice. The human species stands accused of 17 violations of galactic peace codes. How do you answer these charges? Sarah stepped forward. We answer that we acted in self-defense. Our colonies were under attack. We had the right to protect our people. A sound like breaking glass filled the room. It was laughter from the Christek representative. The insect-like creature's many eyes glittered. Self-defense? Your species destroyed 3 entire pirate fleets. You used forbidden weapons. You showed no mercy. Those pirates killed 15,000 civilians on New Victoria, Captain Ark said, his voice rising. They burned hospitals. They murdered children. What were we supposed to do? Send them flowers? The room erupted in angry sounds. Clicks, hisses, and electronic squeals echoed from the floating platforms. The Zephyrian's mental voice cut through the noise like a blade. Silence. The human emotions are noted, but irrelevant. This council operates on logic, not feelings. Dr. Torres stood up. With respect, honored judges, our actions were logical. We tried diplomacy first. We offered the pirates terms. They responded by attacking more colonies. We had no choice but to use force. A new voice spoke from the shadows. The void speakers rarely showed themselves fully, appearing only as shifting darkness with burning red eyes. Choice is the problem with humans. You always choose violence. You cannot be taught peaceful ways. That's not true, Ambassador Wright said. His voice was tired but firm. Humans have been part of this galaxy for 50 years. We've contributed to science, art, and exploration. We've saved lives during the Andromedan crisis. We've shared our medical knowledge freely. One defensive action doesn't erase all of that. The ethereal judge, a being of pure light, dimmed and brightened as it spoke. One action? Your species has been involved in 47 armed conflicts since joining the galactic community. This latest incident merely confirms what we have long suspected. Humans are fundamentally violent. Sarah felt her temper rising, but kept her voice steady. Every one of those conflicts was defensive. We've never started a war. We've never attacked first. When other species are in trouble, they call us for help because they know we'll fight to protect the innocent. Fighting is exactly the problem. The Zephyrian said, civilized species solve problems through discussion, trade agreements, and careful negotiation. Violence is the tool of primitives. Captain Park laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Tell that to the families on Kepler Station. Tell that to the survivors of the Raider War. Your civilized discussion didn't stop the pirates from selling human children as slaves. The courtroom fell silent. Even the background hum of alien technologies seemed to stop. The Christek judge's compound eyes focused on Park. The human emotional response clouds judgment. This is why your species cannot be trusted with advanced technology and galactic citizenship. Dr. Torres activated her tablet. I have data here showing human contributions to galactic society. Our medical research has saved millions of lives across 30 species. Our engineering solutions have prevented 6 stellar collapses. Our agricultural techniques feed 400 billion beings on colony worlds. Irrelevant, the Void Speaker whispered. A species that resorts to violence cannot be allowed to influence galactic civilization. The contamination spreads. Sarah looked up at the judges, seeing no mercy in their alien faces. You're punishing us for being effective. You're afraid because when humans fight, we win. But we only fight when we have to. The ethereal judge pulsed brighter. Fear is not the issue. Preservation of galactic peace is our duty. Humans represent a destabilizing element that threatens the order we have maintained for millennia. What order? Ambassador Wright stood up slowly. Pirates raiding colonies while you debate for months about trade sanctions? Species going extinct because you're too civilized to intervene? That's not order. That's cowardice. The chamber exploded. In angry sounds again, several judges began speaking at once, their words overlapping in a chaos of alien languages. Sarah caught fragments of translation through her earpiece. Words like primitive, dangerous, and irredeemable kept repeating. Zephyrian's mental voice cut through everything else. Enough. The council will now deliberate. Humans will remain silent. The floating platforms moved away from the center of the room, forming a circle high above. The alien judges spoke in frequencies beyond human hearing, but Sarah could feel the weight of their discussion pressing down on her. Hours passed. The human delegation sat in uncomfortable chairs designed for beings with different anatomies. Sarah's back ached, but she refused to show weakness. She watched the alien judges gesture and flash different colors at each other. Some kind of debate was happening, but she couldn't tell who was winning. Finally, the platforms returned to their original positions. The Zephyrian judge descended until it was level with Sarah's eyes. Its mental voice filled her head with cold. Finality. The Galactic Council has reached a unanimous decision. The human species is hereby banished from galactic civilization. All human vessels, stations, and colonies outside the Sol system and its immediate neighbors will be evacuated. A quantum barrier will be established around human space. No human vessel will be permitted to leave this zone. No alien vessel will be permitted to enter. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. You can't do this. There are human colonies throughout the galaxy. Millions of people who have built their lives out there. They will be relocated to the quarantine zone within 1 standard year. Bien? Christek judge clicked. Any humans found outside the barrier after that time will be destroyed without warning. How long? Dr. Torres asked, her voice barely a whisper. How long will this banishment last? The Void Speaker's red eyes glowed brighter. Until humanity proves it can exist without violence. Given your nature, this seems unlikely to occur. Within any reasonable time frame. Captain Park stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. This isn't justice. This is genocide. You're condemning our entire species for defending ourselves. The decision is final, the Zephyrian said. Humanity has 1 standard year to comply. Guards will escort you to your vessel. You are no longer welcome in this sector. As alien guards surrounded them, Sarah looked up one last time at the judges. You'll regret this. When the next crisis, Comes, when something threatens the galaxy that your civilized discussion can't handle, remember that you chose to throw away the one species willing to fight for what's right. The ethereal judge dimmed to almost nothing. Such a crisis will not occur. The galaxy is at peace. Sarah smiled grimly as the guards led her away. Famous last words. Outside the courtroom, their ship waited on the landing platform. Sarah looked back at the massive council building, its spires reaching toward the stars. Somewhere in that building, alien bureaucrats were already planning humanity's isolation. She activated her communicator. "This is Admiral Chun to all human. Vessels in the system. We're going home, and we're going alone." The ship lifted off into the alien sky, carrying the last free humans away from a galaxy that no longer wanted them. Dr. Marcus Webb stared at the broken alien device on his workbench. Sparks flew from its cracked crystal core as he carefully pulled it apart with his tools. The machine had been working perfectly 3 months ago. Now it was just expensive junk. All. Around him, the research station buzzed with desperate activity. Scientists from a dozen human colonies worked day and night to understand technology they had never needed to understand before. When the aliens sold them these devices, they came with simple instructions. Press this button. Connect this cable. Never open the case. Now, the cases were all open. Now humans had no choice but to learn. "Any luck with the medical scanner?" "Doctor." Sarah Kim asked as she walked over. Her lab coat was stained with coffee and machine oil. Dark circles under her eyes showed she hadn't slept in days. Marcus shook his head. "The quantum processor is completely alien. I can see how the energy flows, but I can't figure out how to make a new one. We might have to go back to basic X-rays and blood tests." "That's what they used on Earth 200 years ago," Sarah said. "People died from things we could cure with a simple scan. People are going to die anyway if we can't figure this out." Marcus picked up another crystal component. It was beautiful, like a work of art made from living light. It was also completely beyond human understanding. "How many more medical scanners do we have working?" 43 in the whole sector. When they break, that's it. No more replacement parts from the Zephyrians. No more maintenance contracts with the Christek. Through the window, Marcus could see ships arriving at the station every day. Refugee. Ships from the outer colonies, packed with humans who had lost everything when the barriers went up. Families who had spent their lives building new worlds were now crowded into temporary shelters, waiting for answers that might never come. Admiral Chun's voice came over the intercom. "All department heads to the main briefing room. Priority. Alpha." Marcus and Sarah hurried through the corridors. The station felt different now. Before the banishment, it had been a peaceful research facility. Now it was the closest thing humanity had to a capital. People moved with purpose and fear in equal measure. The briefing room was packed. Military officers sat next to civilian administrators. Colony governors talked quietly with ship captains. Everyone looked tired and worried. Admiral Chun stood at the front of the room. Behind her, a holographic display showed the human sector of space surrounded by a pulsing red barrier. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be direct. We're in trouble. The quantum barriers aren't just keeping us in. They're cutting off everything. Number. Trade. No communication. No help." Captain Rodriguez raised his hand. "What about the colonies that were evacuated? Are they settled? That's part of the problem. We have 12 million refugees spread across 17 worlds. Most of these worlds can't support that many people. New Pacifica is running out of food. Bremen Colony doesn't have enough power generators. And Kepler Station, double quotes, Chun paused. Kepler Station is completely dependent on alien technology. Their life support systems are failing." Silence filled the room. Everyone knew what that meant. Dr. Torres, the head of colonial administration, stood up. "How long do we have? For Kepler Station? 6 months, maybe less. For the other colonies? It depends on how fast we can become self-sufficient." Marcus cleared his throat. "Admiral, we're trying to reverse engineer the alien technology, but it's like trying to build a computer with stone tools. We're missing fundamental knowledge about quantum mechanics, crystal matrix engineering, and biocomputing." "So we learn," Chun said simply. We adapt, we improvise. It's what humans do. A young officer near the back spoke up. With respect, Admiral, these aliens have had thousands of years to develop this technology. How can we catch up in months? Chun smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. Because we have something they don't. We have necessity. And we think differently than they do. Over the following weeks, Marcus watched humanity begin to change. The research teams stopped trying to copy alien technology exactly. Instead, they started asking different questions. How could humans solve the same problems using human methods? The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Lisa Park, a geologist studying the asteroid fields in the quarantine zone, found something interesting. Crystals that form naturally in the vacuum of space, shaped by cosmic radiation and solar winds. They weren't as sophisticated as alien quantum processors, but they could store and manipulate energy. Look at this, Lisa said, holding up a rough crystal the size of her fist. It's not pretty like the alien stuff, but it works. I can program it using electromagnetic pulses. Basic binary code, but scaled up through quantum resonance. Marcus studied the readings on her scanner. The efficiency is terrible compared to alien tech. But it's ours. We can make more. We can understand how it works. And look at this. Lisa activated a small device connected to the crystal. A holographic display appeared, showing complex mathematical equations. I've been thinking about our problem wrong. We've been trying to make one perfect processor. What if we made thousands of simple ones and connected them together? The idea spread through the research teams like wildfire. Within a month, they had built a crude but functional network of crystal processors. It was huge, taking up an entire room, but it could do the work of a single alien quantum computer. More importantly, humans could build it themselves. News of the breakthrough reached the refugee ships and outer colonies. For the first time since the banishment, people started to hope. If they could replace alien computers, maybe they could replace other alien technology. Dr. Webb found himself working with engineers who had never seen the inside of a laboratory before. Ship mechanics who understood engines taught him about energy flow. Farmers who had worked with alien agricultural systems showed him how to adapt crops to grow without alien nutrients. The work was hard, and the failures were frequent. 3 experimental power generators exploded before they built one that worked. The first attempts at faster-than-light communication created nothing but static. But every failure taught them something new. Captain Maria Santos arrived at the research station with news from the outer colonies. The barrier isn't just keeping us in, she reported to Admiral Chun. It's changing us. My navigator says the space inside the quarantine zone feels different. Gravity flows in strange patterns. The background radiation has odd frequencies. Chun frowned. Dangerous? We don't think so? But it's like the aliens didn't just lock us up. They put us somewhere that doesn't follow normal physics. My engineer thinks it might be why our crystal processors work so well here. The space itself is more flexible. Marcus overheard the conversation and felt a chill run down his spine. The aliens hadn't just banished humanity. They had put them in a prison designed to be impossible to escape from. But like most prisons, it had been built by jailers who didn't really understand their prisoners. 6 months after the banishment, Marcus stood in the new Crystal Processing Center. Thousands of human-made processors hummed quietly in their housing. Units. The room was warm from their operation, but the light they produced was soft and somehow friendly. Dr. Kim walked up beside him. The medical scanners are working again. Not as good as the alien ones, but good enough. We're even improving them. The human-made versions can detect some things the alien scanners missed. Marcus nodded. The refugees from Kepler Station? Life. Support is stable. They'll survive. More than that, they're thriving. The new systems are more reliable than what they had before. Through the window, Marcus could see the lights of human ships moving through space. More than just refugees now. Exploration vessels, built entirely from human technology and human understanding. Ships designed to work in the strange physics of their quarantine zone. Admiral Chun's voice came over the intercom. Attention all personnel. Long-range sensors have detected something at the edge of our sector. Unknown vessels, non-human design. They're not responding to communication attempts. Marcus and Sarah exchanged glances. The aliens had promised that nothing would enter the quarantine zone. But something was out there in the dark, watching them dot as alarms began to sound throughout the station. Marcus realized that humanity's time of peaceful isolation might be coming to an end. They had learned to survive without the galaxy. Now they might have to learn to fight without it too. Captain Elena Vasquez pressed her face against the observation window of her scout ship. What she saw made her stomach turn cold. Where the Epsilon Cygni system used to be, there was nothing but twisted metal and empty space. How many planets were in this system? She asked her navigator. Lieutenant Hayes checked his scanner. 7 planets, Captain. 3 billion inhabitants across 4 colonies. The Alterian settlement was one of their oldest. Elena stared at the debris field. Pieces of metal drifted in patterns that hurt to look at. They moved too smoothly, too purposefully. This wasn't the random wreckage of a battle or natural disaster. This was something else. Captain, her sensor operator called out. I'm picking up energy signatures. Something big is moving through the debris. On the main screen, shapes began to emerge from the wreckage. Ships, if they could be called ships. They looked like enormous insects made of black metal and crystal. Each one was the size of a city, covered in spines and mechanical limbs that moved constantly, sorting through the debris. Are they salvaging? Hayes whispered. Elena watched one of the creatures extend a massive arm toward a chunk of planetary crust. Instead of picking it up, the arm seemed to dissolve the rock, absorbing it into the creature's body. As she watched, the creature grew slightly larger. They're eating it, she said quietly. They're eating the whole system. Her communications officer turned around, his face pale. Captain, I'm detecting similar signatures from 12 other systems along the galactic rim. All of them show the same pattern. Complete consumption. Elena felt her heart pounding. She had been a scout captain for 15 years, exploring the edges of human space during their isolation. She had seen pirates, asteroids, and strange alien artifacts. But this was different. This was terror made real. How fast are they moving? She asked. Based on the consumption patterns, each fleet can strip a system in approximately 6 months. They're moving toward the galactic core at steady intervals. Elena did quick math in her head. If these things continued at their current pace, they would reach the outer council worlds within 2 years. The core systems would fall within 5. Set course for the barrier, she ordered. Maximum speed. Her crew stared at her. Captain, we can't breach the quarantine. The council will destroy us. Elena looked back at the screen, where more of the mechanical creatures were emerging from the debris. The council needs to know about this. Even if they kill us for breaking the barrier, someone has to wound them. The journey to the barrier took 3 days. Elena's ship was fast, built with the new human crystal drive technology that worked so well in their strange quarantine zone. But as they approached the shimmering wall of energy that kept humanity imprisoned, her confidence faded. The barrier was beautiful and terrible. It stretched across space like an aurora, shifting between colors that had no names. Energy patterns danced along its surface, forming shapes that almost looked like alien writing. Broadcasting on all council frequencies, her communications. Officer reported. Emergency Priority Alpha. Unknown hostile force approaching galactic core. For hours they waited. Elena recorded everything she had seen, preparing detailed reports and sensor data. The evidence was overwhelming. Something was coming to destroy the galaxy, and only humanity had seen it. Finally, a response came. The cold mental voice of a Zephyrian judge filled the bridge. Human vessel, you are in violation of quarantine protocols. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the human scout ship Pioneer. I have critical intelligence about a threat to all galactic civilization. Unknown. Hostiles have consumed 13 star systems and are advancing on Council space. Human lies and deception are noted. You seek to end your banishment through fabricated emergencies. The galaxy is at peace. Elena's hands clenched into fists. I have sensor data, video recordings, proof of what I'm telling you. Billions of beings are dead. More will die if you don't listen. No external threats exist beyond the galactic rim. Your claims are impossible. Withdraw or face destruction. Look at the Epsilon Cygni system, Elena shouted. Look at Alteria Prime. Look at any of the rim colonies. They're gone. Everything is gone. The conversation is terminated. You have 10 minutes to withdraw before defensive measures are activated. Elena stared at the communication panel in disbelief. Through the barrier, she could see Council patrol ships moving into position. Weapons that could destroy her ship with a single shot were powering up. Captain? Hayes asked quietly. Orders? Elena closed her eyes and thought of the mechanical. Creatures consuming entire worlds. She thought of the billions of beings in Council space who had no idea what was coming for them. She thought of humanity, locked away and helpless while the galaxy burned. Send the data anyway, she said. Broadcast everything on all frequencies. Emergency channels, civilian networks, military communications. Send it all. They'll shoot us down before we can transmit everything. Then we send what we can. 4. 8 minutes. Elena's ship broadcast images of destruction across the galaxy. Videos of the mechanical creatures. Sensor readings showing the consumption of entire systems. Mathematical projections of when the threat would reach Council worlds. Most of the transmissions were blocked by Council jamming systems. But some got through to civilian receivers and independent colonies. Someone, somewhere, would know the truth. With 30 seconds left on the Council ultimatum, Elena gave the order to withdraw. Her ship pulled back from the barrier just as energy. Beams lanced through the space where they had been hovering. The return journey to human space felt longer than the trip out. Elena sat in her captain's chair, watching the stars and thinking about the future. Humanity was trapped behind barriers while death approached the galaxy. The Council wouldn't listen to warnings. They were too proud, too certain of their own superiority. When Elena's ship docked at the main human station, Admiral Chun was waiting for her. The Admiral looked older than Elena remembered, her hair now completely gray and her eyes tired from years of carrying impossible responsibilities. Your transmission was received, Chun said, as they walked through the station corridors. Emergency. Session of the Human Leadership Council has been called. We need to hear everything. In the briefing room, Elena stood before the assembled leaders of humanity. Colony governors, ship captains, scientists, and military officers all listened as she described what she had seen. The holographic displays showed the mechanical creatures in all their terrible detail. When she finished, the room was silent for a long moment. Dr. Webb, now head of the Technology Development Program, spoke first. The pattern suggests they're not just randomly destructive. They're converting matter into more of themselves, a self-replicating swarm. How long before they reach us? Admiral Chun asked. Elena checked her calculations again. If they maintain current speed and don't encounter significant resistance, They'll reach the galactic core in 4 to 5 years. Our quarantine zone is actually in their direct path. We'll be among the first targets after the Rim colonies. Governor Martinez from New Pacifica leaned forward. What about the Council? Surely they'll detect the threat eventually. Maybe, but by the time they accept that it's real, it might be too late. These creatures adapt quickly. Every system they consume makes them stronger and smarter. Admiral Chun stood up and walked to the star map. The red dots marking consumed systems formed a rough line pointing directly at the heart of galactic civilization. So we have a choice. We can sit here and wait for them to reach us, hoping the Council figures out the truth in time. Or, we break the barriers ourselves, Elena finished. We go to war without permission to save a galaxy that doesn't want us. The room erupted in discussion. Some voices called for immediate action. Others argued for caution. A few suggested trying to negotiate with the Council again. Elena watched Admiral Chun study the star map. She could see the calculations running. Behind the Admiral's eyes, population centers, fleet strengths, supply lines, the mathematics of survival. Finally, Chun turned back to the room. We prepare for war, she said quietly, both against these mechanical destroyers and against the Council forces that will try to stop us from fighting them. Because if we don't act, everyone dies, including us. Elena nodded. Humanity had spent a century in isolation, developing new technologies and new ways of thinking. Now they would find out if all that growth had been enough to face the darkness between the stars. Admiral Lisa Chun watched the tactical display with cold calculation. 3 Devourer scout ships moved through the outer edge of human space, their mechanical forms cutting through asteroids like knives through paper. They had been testing the quarantine barriers for 6 months now, probing for weaknesses. Contact in 30 seconds, reported Commander Jackson from the weapons station. All ships report ready. Lisa was Admiral Sarah Chun's daughter, but she had never wanted to live in her mother's shadow. 20 years of isolation had given her something the older generation lacked. She had grown up knowing that humanity stood alone. She had learned to fight not for glory or politics, but for survival. Remember, we cannot let any of them escape, she said into her communicator. If even one scout returns to the main fleet, they'll know we're here. The human ships moved like a pack of wolves. They had learned much during their isolation. The Devourers were powerful, but they followed patterns. They adapted quickly to direct attacks, but they had trouble with chaos and unpredictability. Initiating. Random Pattern Attack Formation 7, Lisa ordered. Her ship, the Defiance, rolled sideways and accelerated at an angle that made no tactical sense. Around her, 12 other human vessels moved in equally bizarre patterns. To any logical observer, it looked like madness. The Devourer scouts reacted exactly as predicted. They tried to analyze the human attack patterns, looking for the logic behind the movements. Their mechanical minds worked frantically to understand what the humans were doing. That was their mistake. While the Devourers focused on solving the puzzle of human tactics, Lisa's weapons officer launched a spread of crystal matrix. Torpedoes. The weapons looked clumsy compared to alien technology, but they worked differently. Instead of following straight paths, they curved and twisted through space, guided by human intuition rather than computer calculations. The first Devourer ship exploded in a shower of metal fragments. The second one tried to adapt, shifting its armor patterns to deflect the strange human weapons. But Lisa had already ordered the next phase of attack. All ships, execute pattern Chaos 7 Alpha, she commanded. The human ships suddenly changed direction completely. Some accelerated toward the Devourers, others pulled back. 3 ships began spinning in complex spirals while firing randomly into space. It looked like the human fleet had gone completely insane. The third Devourer scout tried to process this new information, but its mechanical brain couldn't handle the randomness. It hesitated for 3 seconds, trying to calculate the optimal response. 3 seconds was too long. Commander Rodriguez's ship, the Vengeance, appeared directly behind the Devourer and fired a full spread of plasma charges into its engine core. The space around the human fleet went quiet. Wreckage from the 3 scouts drifted slowly among the asteroids. Lisa ordered her ships to collect every piece of debris. The humans had learned to study their enemies carefully. "Admiral," her science officer called out, "we're receiving emergency transmissions from the galactic core. Multiple systems under attack." Lisa switched her display to show the galaxy-wide communication networks. Even through the quarantine barriers, some signals managed to leak through. What she saw made her blood run cold. The main Devourer fleet had reached the Council worlds. System after system was going dark. Emergency broadcasts pleaded for help, for evacuation, for anything that might save them from the mechanical swarm. "The Zephyrian homeworld is under siege," her communications officer reported. "The Christek colonies are evacuating. The Ethereal Council is..." The signal just went dead. Lisa closed her eyes and felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders. The aliens who had banished humanity were dying. Their ancient civilizations were being consumed by machines that turned living worlds into more weapons of destruction. She should have felt satisfaction, justice for the years of exile. But all she felt was sadness for the billions of innocent beings who would die because their leaders had been too proud to listen to human warnings. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the Human Leadership Council." Jackson reported. Her mother's face appeared on the screen. Admiral Sarah Chun looked older now, worn down by decades of carrying humanity's survival on her shoulders. "Lisa, we've been monitoring the galactic situation. The Council worlds are falling faster than our projections predicted." "The Devourers are learning," Lisa replied. "Each system they consume makes them smarter. They're adapting to Council tactics in real time, which is why we're moving to Phase 2. All human fleets are to begin barrier penetration operations. We're going to war." Lisa felt her heart rate increase. For a century, humanity had been trapped behind quantum barriers, building their strength in secret. Now they were about to reveal themselves to a galaxy at war. What about Council retaliation? "They'll try to stop us." Her mother's expression was grim. "Let them try. We've run the simulations. Council forces are designed to fight other civilized species. They've never faced an enemy that fights like us." Over the following weeks, Lisa watched humanity prepare for the greatest military operation in their history. Ships that had been hidden in asteroid bases emerged into open space. Weapons that had been tested in secret were loaded onto vessels designed for one purpose: breaking through barriers that were supposed to be unbreakable. The human fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Where alien ships were elegant and symmetrical, human vessels looked dangerous and practical. They were covered in armor plating and weapon systems that could be modified during battle. Most importantly, they were designed to work together in ways that confused and frightened their enemies. "All ships report ready for barrier assault," Commander Jackson announced. Lisa stood on the bridge of the Defiance, looking at the quantum barrier that had imprisoned her people for so long. Beyond that wall of energy, the galaxy was burning. Ancient civilizations were dying while their survivors sent desperate pleas for help that no one could answer, except humanity. "This is Admiral Lisa Chun to all human forces," she said into her communicator. "Today we break the chains that have bound us. Today we return to a galaxy that cast us out. We go not as conquerors, but as guardians. We fight not for revenge, but for the future of all intelligent life." She paused, thinking of her mother and all the humans who had died during the long isolation. The council called us violent and uncivilized. They said we were too dangerous to be part of galactic society. Today, we prove them right. We are dangerous. Dangerous to anyone who threatens innocent life. Lisa raised her hand, then brought it down sharply. All ships, execute Operation Breakout. Punch through the barriers. Let's go save a galaxy. The human fleet surged forward like a wave of controlled destruction. Crystal matrix weapons fired in synchronized patterns, creating resonance points in the quantum barriers. Ship after ship slammed into the weakened energy fields with shields designed to absorb and redirect barrier energy. For a moment, nothing happened. The barriers held, shimmering with the power of 100 suns, and cracks appeared. Lines of darkness spreading across the walls of light. Like breaks in cosmic glass. The barriers shattered. Human ships poured through the gaps like water through a broken dam. Behind them, alerts and warnings screamed from council monitoring stations. Emergency broadcasts filled the communication networks as alien observers tried to understand what they were seeing. Humanity had returned, and they were no longer the weak, dependent species that had been banished a century ago. They had become something new, something the galaxy had never seen before, something that the mechanical devourers were about to discover they could not consume or understand. Lisa smiled as her ship cleared the barrier and accelerated toward the galactic core. The real war was about to begin. The devourer fleet stretched across space like a metallic plague. Thousands of mechanical ships moved in perfect formation toward the Zephyrian home world, their dark hulls reflecting the light of the dying system's star. They had already consumed 3 planets. Only the capital world remained. High Counselor Zefter floated in the command center of the last defense station, watching his civilization's final moments approach. The telepathic being's thoughts were filled with regret and terror. Around him, the remnants of the galactic fleet tried desperately to slow the enemy advance. Defensive Line 7 has fallen, reported a Christek officer, its compound eyes dimmed with exhaustion. The Devourers are adapting to our weapons faster than we can modify them. Zefta reached out with his mind, feeling the pain and fear of billions of beings on the planet below. Children who would never grow up. Artists whose work would be consumed and forgotten. Scientists whose discoveries would die with them. How long? He asked quietly. 6 hours until they reach orbital range. 12 hours until ... until the end. Suddenly, space itself seemed to tear open. Brilliant flashes of light erupted across the star system as something burst through the fabric of reality. Ships appeared from nowhere, moving at impossible speeds and firing weapons that painted the darkness with rainbow colors. Unknown vessels entering the system, the sensor operator called out. Configuration unknown. Energy signatures unknown. They're attacking the Devourers. On the main screen, the newcomers revealed themselves. Human ships, but unlike anything in the galactic databases. They moved like living things, twisting and rolling through space in patterns that hurt to watch. Their weapons fired in sequences that seemed random, but somehow worked together perfectly. Devourer fleet tried to respond to this new threat. The mechanical ships turned their attention from the planet to engage the human vessels. But something was wrong. The Devourer's usual adaptive algorithms weren't working. Admiral, Lisa Chun stood on the bridge of the Defiance as it dove through the enemy formation like a shark through a school of fish. Around her, the human fleet executed maneuvers that violated every principle of civilized warfare. Ships appeared to ignore physics, changing direction without momentum, firing weapons that curved around obstacles to hit targets they couldn't even see. Devourer command ship is trying to analyze our attack. Patterns, her tactical officer reported. It's sending computational queries to the entire fleet. Lisa smiled. Good. Let it think. Jackson, execute Protocol Pandora. Across the human fleet, every ship suddenly began doing something completely different. Some accelerated at maximum speed toward the enemy, while others retreated. Several ships began spinning wildly while firing in all directions. Two vessels appeared to ram each other, only to phase through at the last second and emerge on the other side. The Devourer fleet froze. For the first time in their mechanical existence, they encountered something they could not understand or predict. Their computational minds worked frantically to find patterns in the chaos, but every time they thought they understood what the humans were doing, the humans did something else entirely. Target the command nodes, Lisa ordered. Remember, aim. For confusion, not destruction. Human weapons had evolved far beyond their original designs. The crystal matrix torpedoes didn't just explode when they hit their targets. They released clouds of disruptive energy that interfered with mechanical thinking processes. Plasma charges scattered into fractal patterns that overloaded sensory systems. Most devastating of all were the chaos bombs, weapons that created fields of pure randomness that made it impossible for logical minds to function. The first Devourer ships began to malfunction. Their formation broke apart as individual vessels started making independent decisions based on corrupted data. Some turned on their own allies. Others began consuming themselves. A few simply stopped moving entirely, their mechanical brains locked in infinite loops trying to solve unsolvable equations. On the defense station, Zephyr watched in amazement as the tide of battle turned. The unstoppable Devourer fleet was falling apart, destroyed not by superior weapons, but by superior thinking. The humans, he whispered to himself, they came back. But the battle was far from over. The Devourer Super Command ship, a vessel the size of a moon, began to emit new signals. It was learning from the chaos, trying to adapt to randomness itself. Lisa saw the danger immediately. All ships, target the Super Command vessel. Everything we have. The human fleet converged on the massive enemy ship like a swarm of angry wasps. But the Super Command vessel was ready for them. It had analyzed thousands of hours of human combat data from the destroyed scouts. It began to predict human unpredictability. It's adapting, Jackson reported grimly. The big one is starting to counter our chaos tactics. Lisa closed her eyes and thought of her mother, of her grandmother who had died during the early isolation years, of all the humans who had suffered while learning to survive alone. She thought of the children on the planet below, alien children who deserved to live even if their leaders had been fools. New orders to all ships, she said quietly. Formation Omega, Protocol Human. Her crew stared at her. Formation Omega wasn't in any manual. Protocol Human didn't exist in any tactical database. Admiral? Jackson asked uncertainly. Lisa opened her eyes and smiled. Tell every ship to do whatever they think is best. No coordination, no tactics, no formation. Just ... be human. The order went out across the fleet. For a moment, confusion reigned as captains tried to understand what their admiral meant. Then, one by one, they began to smile. Captain Rodriguez. On the Vengeance decided to ram the Super Command ship while playing classical music on all frequencies. Commander Park chose to paint targets on his hull and dare the Devourers to hit them. Captain Martinez began reciting poetry while doing barrel rolls through enemy fire. The effect was devastating. The Super Command ship had adapted to human unpredictability, but it couldn't adapt to human individuality. Every ship in the fleet was now acting on pure instinct, emotion, and personal choice. There were no patterns to analyze because each human captain was being uniquely, impossibly human. The great mechanical mind of the Super Command ship overloaded. Sparks flew from its hull, as it tried to process the incomprehensible behavior of creatures who made decisions based on feelings, memories, hopes, and dreams instead of logic. With a flash of light visible across the entire star system, the Super Command ship exploded. The remaining Devourer vessels, cut off from their controlling intelligence, drifted aimlessly through space like leaves in the wind. In the silence that followed, Zefter received a communication from the human fleet. A woman's voice, strong but not unkind, spoke in perfect galactic standard. "This is Admiral Lisa Chun of the Human Guardian Fleet. The immediate threat to your system has been neutralized. We're moving on to assist other worlds under attack. We'll return to check on your recovery efforts when the crisis is over." Zefter found his mental voice. "Admiral Chun, how can we thank you? How can we repay this debt?" There was a pause. Then Lisa's voice came back, carrying an emotion Zefter couldn't identify. "You can repay it by remembering. Remember that the species you cast out came back to save you. Remember that violence isn't always evil when it protects the innocent. And remember that the next time someone warns you about a threat, maybe you should listen." As the human fleet departed for the next battle, Zefter floated in his command center and thought about the past century. The Council had banished humanity for being too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous for civilized society. They had been absolutely right. Humanity was dangerous. Dangerous to anyone who threatened those they chose to protect. Years later, after the last Devourer ship had been destroyed and the galaxy began to rebuild, Zefter would stand before the new Galactic Council. The chamber was different now, designed with human input to encourage discussion rather than judgment. Admiral Lisa Chun sat not as a supplicant seeking permission, but as an equal offering partnership. Around her sat representatives from dozens of species, all of them alive because humanity had chosen to fight for strangers who had rejected them. "The galaxy has learned much these past years," Zefter said to the assembly. "We learned that peace maintained through isolation leads to weakness. We learned that sometimes the greatest acts of civilization require uncivilized courage. Most importantly, we learned that humanity's greatest strength isn't their weapons or their ships. It's their refusal to abandon those in need, even those who have abandoned them." He looked directly at Lisa, his mental voice carrying gratitude that would last forever. The Human Guardian Fleet has earned the right to protect this galaxy, not through conquest, but through sacrifice, not through fear, but through hope. They have become what we always needed, but never deserved. Guardians, who ask nothing in return for everything they give. Lisa stood and looked around the chamber at the faces of beings whose worlds she had saved. "We learned something too," she said simply. "We learned that home isn't a place. It's the people you choose to protect. This galaxy is our home now. All of it, and we'll keep it safe." In the years that followed, human ships would patrol the galactic rim,